Hey Canada, this is my video response to a great question put forth by Tom Larson. Tom and Jody both, they've put out their own YouTube channel called Now That's Progress, and they've made some really great videos. They work well together, as you'll see if you watch their videos. But Tom asked the question, he posed the question to me in a message, more or less asking the question I suppose that most people ask. Like, it's one thing to be against statism, forced subjugation, modern forms of slavery, but it's another thing entirely to offer, like, how to offer the remedies, right? To answer the question is, well, how do we break free from this? How do we end this system of oppression? Now, prior to the internet age, prior to us having the ability to have instant access to information based instantaneously, light travels at 186,000 miles per second. So even someone who lives on the other side of the world has instantaneous access to information. The problem was there were no platforms or methods, even at the very beginning stages of the internet, to get the message from here to there in a very efficient manner, writing letters or even forms. Like, who knew where to find the answers? Fortunately, we now have social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, right? Now I know there's some suppression, right? And there is still some things that can hinder and hamper our efforts. But in reality, this is, when you think back to the age of Enlightenment and how, like, the Gutenberg presses and things, even having newspapers, how much that helped to expand and enlighten the people that took them out of the old world Europeans, out of the ice or the Dark Ages, and North Americans, out of the Dark Ages. Well, not more North Americans at that stage of the game, but took the old world Europeans out of the Dark Ages and brought them into the Enlightenment era, is because people had the ability, the capacity to have a greater reach for proper philosophical principles and endeavors. You had the ability to not just speak to people in your inner circles or in your community, but to have an effect in huge swaths of the population in any country. Well, now, like I say, we live in the information age. This is the internet age, the age of information. So when you think about it, and I mean, when you understand the fact that government, I wrote it down here just to make sure. So basically, so authority, which is government, central planning authority. I mean, there are some things that have legitimate authority, but all that authority, like your boss might have a certain authority over you if you work for him, but there's always an understanding that you have the capacity and the ability to leave at any time. So they don't have an authority over you outside of that workplace. So it's well understood they don't own you. You choose that relationship voluntarily, and it can be broken at any time from either participant, right? But basically, authority, governments, is a fictional construct of the mind, instilled in us from very early ages. So yes, we're taught this which made it easier to transition from the old world religions to the modern religion of statism, the cult of statism. It was easy for central planners and those that come through the public education or created the public education / indoctrination centers. It was easy for them, like I say, to transition from the old world governments, gods, right? Pharaohs, deities, monarchs, to the state, politicians, to give them, to switch the perceived authority from one mystical concept to another. So whether it was God or government, we all know that, people can say, oh, God will smite thee or this or that, but you know yourself, you haven't had anything that has happened in your life that you can actually place the blame on God in particular. But there are many things, many negative consequences and ramifications that happen to you as a result of these land-based gods. Like, they're not gods, but that's the perception of giving people central authorities power to rule over others. It's your belief in their legitimate authority. That is what keeps the whole system going. If you don't believe that they have any authority over you, then they don't. Especially if you look at the type of people that seek out those positions, and you look at the gigantic masses of people that could potentially oppose them. I mean, like I say, no civil wars, no violence, or no revolutions are necessary. We can just ignore them out of existence. But the key to that, this is the key. People say, and in reality, that is exactly how it can play out. There doesn't have to be any violence. Doesn't mean there won't be. Doesn't mean that the people that want to be your authority, the control freak sociopath, doesn't mean that they won't want to use force or violence against you. But because their numbers are so small, it would be, like I say, a few thousand or a few hundred people against millions. It's a battle they can never win. They know that they have to win the battle of the minds. That's why they start out very early, indoctrinate us at very early ages, so that we believe that they have legitimate authority. But what it comes down to is, how it works is we need a substantial number of people to stop believing in their authority. So there's already quite a few people. I've used this before. Now in Canada, even the last federal elections, or was it Harper's? Either way, there's usually around, if you look at the 24 million eligible voters in Canada, on average, there are roughly 10 million Canadian adults that are of voting age that don't choose to participate in the process. Now, the problem is, though, is people, or the politicians, or those that want to keep the system going, they will use things like, apathy or laziness. They'll use many excuses as to why they don't participate, that tries to lend more legitimacy to the system. Say, the system's legitimate just because those people don't participate. So what we really need to do is just expand our numbers and get to the point where we're not just majority, but the overwhelming people, not just in communities, in provinces, counties, or the country. You need to get more people, and even in your family settings, you need more and more people to reject the very concept of forced subjugation and slavery, which is government, right? Of giving some mystical power that no human being can legitimately attain. All we have to do is break them out of that mindset. Just like when you grow up and you forget, or you realize that Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny isn't real. You didn't have to kill the Easter Bunny. You didn't have to protest against the Easter Bunny. You just had to stop believing in the Easter Bunny. Same goes for central planners and governments. And then you have people but of course these arguments have already been hammered out and pounded away a million times over. And trust me when I say, but you can look all this stuff up yourself, that yes, there is no need for essential planning authorities to have roads or laws or any of the things that we all accept as foundationally important for a free and prosperous society. So in a place like Canada, well, first of all, when they talk about roads, well, first of all, in Canada, I mean, we could still build more, right, and stuff like that, but we already have the geography and layout. It's already been established, so roads already exist, right? But even people that say, well, what would we do? How do we have roads? Well, as someone that has worked on a paving crew for many years of my life and been the guy that has done the paving or tore up the old roads or dug up the old roads, I'm telling you, central planners do not, and governments do not create roads. They're just, now when you're talking about being able to have money to pay for them, that can all be done voluntarily. And like I say, I don't have to even get too far into the technical aspects, because if I did that with every part or with every aspect that the government dictates in our lives, well, this video would go on for hours and hours and hours. But trust me when I say, and you can go through every scenario that you think of, well, government controls or mandates that. Any aspect of your life or society, just think about, could that be done without a mystical central authority or using force, theft, and coercion to make that happen? And think about all the other aspects, whether it's people that have created and invented all of the technological marvels that we currently enjoy. I mean, no one had to use force or coercion or, for your groceries or stuff. You don't have to be forced to go buy groceries, right? And you don't have to be forced to go buy an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or whatever other device you choose to purchase. You just have to extend that out fully to every other aspect of your life, not just economic aspect of your life, but social aspect of it. You do not need, all you need is universal rules and ethics. That's what's needed. That takes me into the next aspect of what I was trying to write. Roads are built by pavers, and wellness and injuries are cured by doctors. That's another thing. People say, oh, we need universal or socialized healthcare. No, you don't. You need doctors to be able to take care of you, and you need to be capable of paying for your own health and medical services, or just like as there's always been, charities, churches, or many different venues or entities that will help you, family members. There's always going to be a way, and there's enough human compassion. I mean, think about it. The fact that we have socialized healthcare, even with all the negative ramifications and consequences that come as a result of using force and coercion, people still want it. The majority of people obviously still want it. Nobody rails against having universal healthcare. So that would already happen. You don't need a centrally planning, mystical central authority in Ottawa or any other, or even local governments, right? You don't need that to have doctors. All these things, it's just a matter, really what it comes down to is accounting and proper business practices and having methods and means to keep everybody accountable. That's really what it comes down to. And in the modern age of information, instant information, and the many different methods and platforms available to us, there's absolutely no need anymore for any belief in any central planner or mystical authority to have all the things that we currently enjoy. That's a completely fictional concept now. And they do that. They keep you confused and confounded regarding that reality so that you will never reject their authority. They believe, or their power rests solely on your belief in their authority, in them being the only way things get done. As soon as you recognize and realize that that's not truth, as soon as you open your eyes, as soon as you take the red pill, as some people say, like I say, it's all a construct in the mind. That's all you're doing. No violence, no revolution. It's not necessary. You just need to stop believing in their authority. But I recognize that, yes, if you're in a room with 100 people and there's only 3 or 4 of you that reject that authority, well, the 96 or 97 are still going to be overpower you. Which is why you need to get to the point where you have enough people that will reject that authority, that those that do believe or try to push for that authority will not feel like they have the power to push that on you, to force that on you. It's all about the equilibrium. That's really what it comes down to. And that equilibrium is only going to come to fruition with the proper education and enlightenment of the human mind, of the human intellect. And luckily, like I said, that can be done very easily in the modern age of information. This kind of stuff would have taken countless generations, and it still may take a generation or two. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know everything, obviously. I'm not one of those control freaks or sociopaths that think I know everything. But I do know that if you give people the proper intellectual capacity to understand and reject having rulers or masters, I can't tell you how they'll break free from having those masters, or how the end result or what the final consequences will be from no longer having rulers. Just like when the slaves stopped picking cotton, when when slavery was abolished, right? It was a simple matter of people no longer believing that slavery was legitimate. Sure, there were a lot of people back then even trying to say, well, yeah, but how will the cotton get picked? Nobody could give them any answer at that time. We all know now, people thought up and created and innovated and come up with machines that could substitute and take the place of the slave, right? Or you could just pay people. I mean, it's just economics. There's absolutely no need for slavery. There's absolutely no need for governments. There's no need for masters or serfs. There's no, or masters or slaves. There's no need for subjects or serfs to a ruling class to have proper economic fundamentals played out and prosperity for everyone. Now, there will still always be winners and losers, but that's the case no matter what you try to do in life. There are always going to be winners and losers. That you cannot prevent. And even those that try to prevent it, like I said, that always proves to be. If you try to prevent winners from being winners, the only way you can equalize a winner and a loser is bring the winner down to the loser. Because if you don't have the natural capabilities, skills, or attributes to bring yourself up to be a winner, the only way to meet that person is to bring the winner down. And we don't want to bring winners down. We want to accept and acknowledge there are always going to be winners and losers, but there is no set in stone. With governments, there's always going to be guaranteed winners and losers, and the government gets to pick that. In the natural order of things, everyone has the capacity or the capabilities to at least strive to be winners. If they try and they fail, then it's as a result, or the blame or that realization has to be upon the individual. It is not anyone's place to try to suppress someone else that is more naturally competitive and maybe has more natural attributes or skills. There's no reason to ever try to bring them down to try to prop someone else up. That's a failing model and always has been. And there's been many countries all over the world that have already failed miserably, and people have suffered tremendously as a result of this race to the bottom, this forced collectivism, this forced subjugation, this trying to create equality of people rather than equality of opportunity, right? And another thing is in regards to safety and security. It's a responsibility we all should participate in. No need for an all-powerful, non-accountable police force. So basically, yeah. I mean, when people say, oh, we need government for... No, you need people that are willing to stand up and defend others. You know, just like myself. I've never been a policeman, and I would never want to be a policeman. But there's been many, many times in my life where I've protected not just myself and my family, never had to ask for some external entity or police force to intervene. And if I did, they should never have, if I need someone to help me, there should never be any time where they believe that they have authority over me, right? If I'm asking someone to come to my aid, this is, like I said, it's all a construct in the mind. And I don't need someone with a badge that believe that they have actual authority over me. I just need someone that's willing to help me. You know, so private security, other human beings, neighbors, friends, family, that's how we protect ourselves and each other. Because we're all human beings. There's nothing to prevent one human being from protecting someone over another human being. We all have the capacity, and that's the thing. Because we live in a world now where you have ways to equalize people's capabilities. So if someone's bigger and stronger, well, if you own a gun, if you're armed to defend yourself, well, their physical prowess and their larger size no longer has any power over you. You've equalized your power by having the power of defense, the power of a gun to defend yourself, right? So we can all be put on equal footing no matter what your size, shape, or stature. And then lastly, as far as like a military, people will also say, well, Well, how would we defend ourselves against foreign invaders? Look at Switzerland. Switzerland is a perfect, well, not perfect, but Switzerland is a great model to show people. They don't intervene. They're non-interventionists. That's a non-interventionist country. They do not intervene. They don't have any role in NATO. They don't, get into global conflicts or trying to, steal resources from other countries. And has Switzerland ever been invaded? When's the last time you've heard of Switzerland being invaded, right? Or bombed or having all these terrorists? They don't. And the reason why is because they don't interfere or intervene in what other people do in other countries. They remain non-interventionists. Plus, the other aspect of it is their population are well armed. And I think once you turn 18, you can check this out for yourself. But I think it might even be mandatory. Mandatory might not be something, but hey, it might be part of the contract that if you want to live in a particular place, right? Or if you want to join in a society, then that may very well be something that you have to sign on online and say. And that's the thing. You can have many different examples to see which one works best. But one possible example could be is, yes, if you want to live in this, libertarian zone, freedom zone, then yes, you have to at least be willing to take and assume some training, so that and carry or have a weapon in your home or on your possession, if when the time ever is needed, where you have to fight off and fend for yourself and protect not just you but your family, but your neighbors and those that live in that zone. Well, of course that only stands to reason that yes, we should, whether it's to protect yourself in your own home or in your community. Yes, if you're going to assume any kind of responsibility, don't want to have any central planning authority, right? If you don't want to have government, you have to assume the responsibility and the task of being able to defend yourself and those around you. That's something that anyone would be willing, I sure would be willing to do. Or anyone that wants to have true freedom, you should be willing to defend yourself and defend those around. If you don't want to have a standing army and a big giant police force, a police state, then yes, that role and responsibility rests in you, right? You got to have some way to protect you, your family, your neighbors, and the population around you. So yes, assume and take on those roles and responsibility. So once again, and this goes out, this plays out for every excuse I've ever heard any statist try to bring up. Well, we need this. Well, we need government for this. Every single one of them can be knocked down like dominoes. No, you don't need an all-power, coercive central authority, illegitimate central authority, to have genuine prosperity, economic and social prosperity, and peaceful coexistence among people in a certain geographical landmass. Not needed, no more. This is the 21st century. We have to start to recognize and realize these facts. And hopefully enough people will finally come to understand and embrace them in this modern age of information, where we can spread this instantaneously, these truths, this reason, this logic, and then we can just basically forget about governments. Ignore them out of existence. I hope this at least somewhat helped you to at least better understand what I was trying to talk about, Tom, and I hope you understand that it's all a construct of the mind. Our belief in central planners and authorities is all, they use fear, intimidation, and force as a means to an end. We just need to learn to stand up and be brave and reject all that, use common sense, logic, and reason to battle against them. It's a battle for the minds. Hopefully we will win out in the long run. This is the Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.